You've seen the rivalry. Two wheels, one road, and a world of difference. One side rumbles with low-end grunt and chrome pride. The other screams past at 14,000 RPM with precision and speed. So what's really going on here? Why are Japanese and American motorcycle engines so different? Let's head to the perfect battleground, a biker cafe on Route 66. One parking lot, two philosophies. Over here, you've got Harley-Davidsons and Indians, all decked out in chrome, idling like thunder. Across the lot, Hondas, Yamahas, Kawasaki's, and Suzuki's sit leaned over, fairings shining, engines ready to rev into the sky. It's not just a styling difference, it's a clash of mechanical worlds. And it's been going on since the 1970s. Back then, American bikes were built on legacy. Big V-twins, classic lines, and a ride that felt like pure freedom. Japanese bikes arrived with something else: engineering precision, speed, and a reputation for running perfectly year after year. That contrast exploded into a debate that still hasn't cooled down. Start with the American giants, Harley-Davidson and Indian. These bikes run on V-twin engines, usually air-cooled, and they focus on one thing above all else: torque. That's the force that helps you launch from a stop, climb a hill, or just feel that deep pull when you twist the throttle. Most Harleys produce max torque in the low RPM range, between 2,000 and 3,000 RPM. Their engines don't rev very high. A Harley Milwaukee 8114, for example, redlines around 5,500 RPM, with peak torque hitting around 119 pound-feet at 3,000 RPM. This setup is perfect for long, relaxed cruising, not aggressive performance. Harleys are also heavy. A Road Glide weighs nearly 840 pounds. That weight adds stability on highways, but it's not ideal for fast cornering or city flickability. The ride is low, relaxed, and full of character. That's what riders want. And Harley leans into that. Their sound, their vibration, even the look of exposed cooling fins. It's all designed to deliver a classic American experience. But here's where the trade-off comes in. For a long time, Harleys weren't known for reliability, especially during the AMF era, 1969 to 1981. Harley quality took a hit. Riders often dealt with oil leaks, electrical issues, and loose bolts. That's where the old joke came from. Harley riders become great mechanics out of necessity. Since then, Harley has dramatically improved. Today's bikes use fuel injection, have stronger crankshafts, and use modern electronics. Their Milwaukee 8 engines are smoother, cooler, and more refined than the old twin-cam line. And yes, some Harleys have gone over 100,000 miles, though that usually involves careful maintenance and an engine rebuild somewhere along the way. Their motto seems clear: if it ain't broke, don't change it too much. Harley sticks with air-cooled engines, or partially liquid-cooled in the twin-cooled models, push rods, and that signature 45-degree V-twin layout. Innovation comes in careful doses: electronic throttle, linked braking, or the reflex defensive rider system. But change happens slowly. Why? Because their customers want the feel of a traditional bike. Harley doesn't want to mess that up. Now let's flip to the other side. The Japanese Big Four: Honda, Yamaha, Suzuki, and Kawasaki. These brands sell everything: sport bikes, touring bikes, dirt bikes, scooters, even race-bred track machines. Their philosophy, innovation, performance, and bulletproof reliability, all at an affordable price. They didn't just show up and copy Harley, they rewrote the rules. In 1969, Honda dropped the CB754, a 736 cubic centimeter inline four with an electric starter, disc brakes, and the ability to cruise at 120 plus miles per hour. That was a wake-up call. It didn't leak. It started every time. It blew minds. And it kicked off a horsepower race across Japan. In the 1970s, Kawasaki launched the Z1900, packing 82 horsepower, a monster for its time. Yamaha rolled out the XS650, while Suzuki offered the GS1000. These bikes revved higher, made more power, and needed way less maintenance than American models. And they did it with newer technology. Overhead camshafts, multiple valves per cylinder, and tighter tolerances. This approach created a new standard. The Japanese didn't rely on tradition. They relied on testing, materials science, and consistent upgrades. They embraced four-stroke engines early. They refined their designs every few years. And most of all, they built motorcycles that didn't break down. Now let's talk about performance. The Japanese dominate sport bikes. If you've heard of the Suzuki Hayabusa, you already know. This beast launched in 1999 with 173 horsepower, a top speed over 190 miles per hour, and shocked the world. Kawasaki followed with the ZX-14R, and later the Ninja H2 and H2R. Supercharged monsters that make up to 310 horsepower and top out well above 200 miles per hour. A Kawasaki Ninja ZX 10R or Yamaha R1 revs to 13,000 to 14,000 RPM. That's nearly triple the red line of a Harley. Their engines are compact, liquid-cooled, and often use DOHC double overhead camshaft layouts with 4 valves per cylinder. That allows massive airflow and combustion efficiency. Combined with lightweight aluminum frames, these bikes can carve corners like scalpels and outrun almost anything on the road. And this isn't just about race bikes. Honda's Goldwing, their flagship touring bike, is built like a luxury car. With a 1,833 cubic centimeter flat-six engine, 7-speed DCT, dual-clutch transmission, and features like reverse assist, Apple CarPlay, and adaptive suspension, it's one of the most advanced motorcycles ever made. Riders have logged over 100,000 miles on Goldwings with almost no problems. Even in the cruiser space, Japanese bikes are strong. Kawasaki Vulcan, Yamaha Star, Suzuki Boulevard, and Honda Shadow all offer classic cruiser style with modern tech. Many have liquid-cooled V-twins, fuel injection, and smoother ride quality. And they cost thousands less than their American counterparts. But here's the twist. Even when a Japanese cruiser performs better on paper, some riders still prefer the American brands. Why? Style, identity, feel. Harley has built a world around their brand. Leather jackets, tattoos, biker clubs, rally events. Indian does the same, using their rich history from the early 1900s. Japanese brands can build great cruisers, but they rarely offer that same emotional pull. Some riders say Japanese cruisers feel too perfect, like they're missing the raw character that makes a Harley feel alive. Let's talk reliability. In this category, Japanese bikes lead the pack. Statistically, they break down less, go longer between services, and cost less to maintain. A major consumer reports survey found that brands like Yamaha, Honda, Kawasaki, and Suzuki have failure rates under 12%, while Harley-Davidson's rate hovered around 25%. That's a big gap. You're basically twice as likely to face issues on a Harley compared to a Japanese bike over the same mileage range. Why the gap? First, Japanese manufacturers over-engineer components. They use shared platforms and proven parts across many models. That means by the time an engine makes it to your bike, it's already been road tested in a dozen other machines, and they constantly refine. Honda's approach, for example, is built around the idea of respect for the customer. That means designing bikes that don't leave you stranded, don't surprise you with weird noises, and don't start leaking oil at 20,000 miles. Everything is built to be durable, accessible, and smooth. On the other hand, Harley-Davidson's legacy was built around customization and mechanical engagement. In the past, Harley didn't mind if their owners had to turn a wrench once in a while. In fact, a lot of riders liked it that way. Swapping exhausts, tuning carbs, adjusting valves, it's all part of the Harley lifestyle. But that philosophy came at a cost. While many riders enjoyed the bond they formed by maintaining their bike, others just wanted it to run clean without fuss. Things started changing after Harley's tough years under AMF ownership in the 70s and early 80s. Quality slipped, sales dropped, but when the company rebounded in the mid-80s, they began taking reliability more seriously. By the 2000s, Harleys were way more refined, but some quirks remained, especially compared to Japanese rivals. For example, Older Harleys required manual valve adjustments, while many Japanese bikes used hydraulic lifters or self-adjusting systems, making maintenance easier and less frequent. Also, since Harleys often run hotter due to air cooling, they generally require more frequent oil changes. That's why American bikes historically had shorter service intervals. Meanwhile, a liquid-cooled Honda or Kawasaki could go much longer between checkups. When it comes to engineering philosophy, you really see the split widen. Japanese engineers aim for precision. They don't just design engines, they optimize every part of the powertrain. They're constantly chasing ways to make things lighter, smoother, faster, and more efficient. Take a look at some of the tech they introduced early. Variable valve timing, VVT, on the Yamaha R1M, ride-by-wire throttle, quick shifters, traction control, cornering ABS, and even automatic dual-clutch transmissions, like the one on the Honda Africa Twin and Goldwing. These are all features that boost performance and safety without adding a ton of complexity for the rider. Meanwhile, American brands stayed much more traditional. Harley-Davidson stuck with air-cooled, pushrod V-twins for the bulk of its history. Why? Because riders wanted that classic sound and feel. It's familiar, it's nostalgic, and it delivers that low-end rumble you can feel in your chest. But keeping that heritage meant sacrificing some modern features. Harley introduced partial liquid cooling, the twin-cooled heads, on touring bikes in the 2010, but it wasn't until 2021 that they fully embraced a liquid-cooled engine in a mainstream big bike, the Revolution Max 1250 in the Pan America. And that Pan America marks a turning point. It's a liquid-cooled DOHC, 150 horsepower V-twin adventure bike with ride modes, electronic suspension, and adaptive ride height. In other words, it's packed with features you'd normally expect on a BMW GS or a Honda Africa Twin. This is Harley stepping into Japanese and European territory, chasing both performance and tech, not just style, and they pulled it off. Reviews praised the Pan America for handling, power delivery, and value. It showed that Harley can build a high-tech machine when they choose to. Indian, Harley's main American rival, has taken a slightly different approach. Since being revived by Polaris in 2013, Indian has quietly modernized its platforms. Their Thunderstroke 111 and Power Plus 108 engines are still big V-twins, but they use overhead cams, liquid cooling, and modern internals. Indian keeps the old-school appearance but sneaks in updated engineering. It's their way of playing both sides, classic style, modern guts. While American brands move slowly, the Japanese never stopped. Every 2 to 3 years, they refresh their sport bikes with new engines, lighter frames, or updated electronics. The Kawasaki Ninja ZX-10R, for example, keeps evolving with aerodynamic winglets, updated electronics, and refinements to its 998 cubic centimeter inline-4 engine. Yamaha's YZF R1 uses a cross-plane crankshaft that mimics the firing order of a MotoGP bike for better traction and feel. Honda's CBR 1000RR Fireblade pushes well over 200 horsepower and comes track-ready out of the box. These bikes aren't just fast, they're precise, balanced, and engineered to win races. And that trickles down to the street models. You don't have to ride MotoGP to feel the benefits of this tech. Even mid-range bikes like the Yamaha MT-07 or Kawasaki Z650 get high-quality suspension, fuel mapping, and refined gearboxes thanks to lessons learned at the top. The difference in engineering also comes from rider expectations. Japanese sport bike riders often chase performance numbers. They want more horsepower, better electronics, and lighter frames with every new model. If a bike doesn't improve, they switch brands. Harley riders, on the other hand, often stay loyal. They want a bike that feels like a Harley. Same look, same rumble. If you mess with that too much, you risk losing the core. So Harley walks a fine line. Every new engine has to look like the old one. New models have to sound right. Even the live-wire electric bike, one of the most high-tech motorcycles ever sold, has a built-in synthetic sound generator so it doesn't feel too silent. Then there's the business strategy behind these brands. The Japanese Big Four built success by offering variety, value, and constant evolution. They make everything from beginner 125cc commuters to 200-plus horsepower track machines. They crushed the middleweight market, bikes under 1000cc by the 1980s, because they were cheaper, faster, and more reliable. Honda's Super Cub, a simple 50cc step-through scooter, is still the best-selling motor vehicle in history, with over 100 million units sold globally. Japanese companies also understood that the rider's journey changes over time. You might start on a Yamaha MT-03, move to a Kawasaki ZX-6R, later ride a Honda Goldwing, and never leave the ecosystem. They've built bikes for every stage and priced them to compete. Harley and Indian play a different game. They focus on heavyweight cruisers and premium touring bikes. Their buyers want craftsmanship, style, and that big American V-twin energy. Harley's average selling price is often several $1,000s higher than a comparable Japanese model, even if the spec sheet favors the latter. But their customers pay for the brand, history, and lifestyle. So you've got two very different machines. One built to stir your soul, the other built to blow your mind. And the best part? You don't have to pick just one. Japanese bikes are like katanas, sharp, refined, and efficient. American bikes are like broadswords, bold, iconic, and built with a legacy in mind. Both have their place, both have their fans, and both keep getting better because the other exists. That's what keeps the road interesting. That's why this rivalry will never really end.